though in fact I don't think any of them are going to join us.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman, for interrupting. There was a problem. I'm ever so sorry. Can I ask you to start your introduction again? I'm so sorry, but we should now be working.
Are we live now, Hazel?
Bear with me 2 seconds. Yes, you are now, Chairman. Apologies for that. You are now live.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm sorry about that slight delay. Technology being what it is, these things do happen, I'm afraid. What I was saying before, which I don't think was streamed, is that we're doing the meeting slightly differently tonight, but this way of conducting parish council business is perfectly legitimate. It is permitted by the emergency regulations. There was an opportunity for members of the public to raise any questions or points that they wish to raise in writing to the clerk before the meeting started. Some people have taken advantage of that. But please don't feel that we're trying in some way to get round making this accessible to members of the public. That's certainly not the intention at all. It's simply to make it possible to conduct business with as few technical problems as possible. And as you've just seen, technology being what it is, problems do seem to happen. What I propose to do is to take the agenda in a slightly different order to that published, because we believe a number of people have joined the live streamed version of the meeting, in particular to hear the item on Long Drove. And rather than having to sit through quite a lot of very administrative matters, which we do have to deal with tonight, we will bring item 8 forward and take it immediately after we've gone through the opening items. So we will take item 8 at that point. And I will also at that point summarize some of the comments that we've received on that issue for the councillors start their discussion. So back to number 1 then, to receive apologies for absence. One of our number, Martin Smith, has sent his apologies. He's not able to join us tonight, but that's the only one. This is a small parish council, otherwise we're all here. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest on items on the agenda. Again, for people unfamiliar with the process, any councillor who has a pecuniary interest in items on the agenda is required legally to declare those interests at the beginning of the meeting. The interpretation of what constitutes an interest doesn't extend to just being interested in the topic as such. I mean, it's a small village, this, and we're nearly all of us interested in everything. So an ordinary interest does not count as something that has to be declared. But from time to time, we do have to declare an interest. And tonight I'll start the ball rolling, because if you've looked through the agenda, you'll see that my wife and I have a planning application being considered later on, and the rules require me to withdraw from the meeting at that point. Hazel will put me in the waiting room, in the Zoom waiting room during the discussion, and the discussion on that item will be taken by my deputy, Alistair Bovey. Are there any other declarations of interest tonight?
No, thanks.
No. No, thank you.
Okay, item 3 then, to approve the draft minutes of the meetings held on January the 7th, January the 28th, May the 19th, and July the 3rd. Does anybody have any comments on them? They've already been circulated to members of the council for them to have a look at.
No, I was happy with those.
Yeah, I'm happy with them.
Hazel and I have had a discussion about the fact that we had to cancel our meeting in March because the lockdown was starting at that point, means that we don't have a record in parish council minutes of where we got to on the Pilton bypass issue. Hazel and I have had a discussion about that, and she assures me that she can minute from tonight's meeting that she has a sufficient record of what happened next in the formal records of the parish council. So we don't need to do anything else about that. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. To note comments and questions from the public on items on the agenda. As I mentioned already, we've had a number of comments on the issue of the Long Grove closure, and I'll take those when we look at that item. That's item 8 when we come to it. But as far as I'm aware, Hazel, we haven't had comments on any other issues. Is that right?
No, that's correct, Chairman. I've received nothing else.
Okay, thank you. And reports from our district county councillors and the police who were invited to join the meeting. May I take it we've had nothing from any of them?
No, we haven't again, Chairman. I've received nothing.
Okay. So to make it easier for people who are not interested in the more administrative matters to leave if they wish, I propose to take item 8 next. That's to discuss our position on Long Grove. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think apart from a couple of messages which I received in the last couple of hours, everything that we have received has been circulated to all members of the parish council. And you've had a chance to have a look at those. To summarise the position, we have had no messages or questions on this from within the parish at all, but we have had a number of messages from people outside the parish asking us to reconsider our opposition to the closure of Long Grove. And I thought it would be helpful just to restate the formal position on that. We were not responsible for closing or indeed reopening Long Grove. The first we found out about this is when a number of people from within the village discovered that the road had been closed and approached me about that. And I inquired of Mendip District Council what had happened. They told me, well, first of all, to be fair to them, they apologized for not having consulted us about it, but they told me that as part of their emergency arrangements to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak, they were looking at ways of reducing pressure on the bus route between Glastonbury and Wells. And they felt it might be helpful to make it easier for people to use cycles for that, and hence use the Long Grove National Cycle Route option. That was the principal reason that they cited at the time for closing the road. It was not about facilitating leisure cycling nor a broader sustainable transport agenda. It was specifically to do with that COVID-19 related issue. You will remember, councillors, that we had a discussion using the mechanism that we had put in place at that time, which didn't involve any online consultation. It involved an exchange of emails. That was before the current emergency regulations for conducting parish council had come into being. And we agreed that we would ask Mendip to reconsider the closure of the road, and we submitted that message. I submitted it on behalf of the council, and between them, Mendip and Somerset County Council, I'm not quite sure which of the two, made the decision to reopen the road. So that's the background to it. A number of people from within the village had also contacted Mendip individually to say that they were opposed to the closure of the road, and to the best of my knowledge, no one from within the village has actually supported the closure of the road, although I can't rule out the possibility that others have, and we don't know about that. So that's where we are. Subsequently, a number of people have approached us who are either themselves cyclists or are interested in cycling, and have suggested we should reconsider that decision. And you've seen their thoughts on that. So I undertook that we would have a further discussion about it tonight before either ratifying or changing our position on the issue. Has anybody got any questions or anything they want to raise?
I was interested to know, is Long Drove currently on one of the cycle highways? Because you see some of the signs around some of the other lanes, but not. I've never
Yes,
seen
it is on a national
road.
cycle. Yes.
Okay, but there isn't anything on Long Drove itself, or it snakes down from Launchley Farm down to, and then along Long Drove, does it?
Yes, there is an imperfect signage system which doesn't signpost every junction on that route, but it is on the national cycle route.
Okay.
Or one of them.
I think it's a small part of the cycle route though. I mean, my husband is a keen cyclist. He would say he's had no problems with it in 20 years. And he says it's a cycle route from nowhere to nowhere, really, because either side of it, you've either got windy country lanes or main roads.
Well, of course, as people have pointed out to us, during lockdown, when there was a lot less traffic, there was an increase in leisure cycling, which is a great thing. And so more people were using it. And the fact that it's on a route from nowhere to nowhere isn't particularly relevant to the fact that the National Cycle Route Network is important to people, and people were out and about exploring it during that time, and may well continue to do so. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think the issue for us is whether it's appropriate for us to oppose something which has got a lot in favour of it. The idea of encouraging cycling and so on is a positive thing, but the feeling within the parish, I believe, I think we fairly represent it when we say that people respect that view and would like to see people using it, but it's perfectly possible for cyclists and motorists to coexist on that particular road without banning motorists completely.
Yes, I agree.
Is there any way, I don't know, the parish or Mendip Council can sort of have better signage to say, you know, beware cyclists and pedestrians on this road and that sort of thing?
Well, a number of people have asked us to do that, and I think we should consider suggesting that. I mean, again, there will be people listening to this who may think we have it within our powers to do that. And Alistair, as our highways representative, will back me up. We have no powers to do that sort of thing. I mean, had we got those powers, we would have signs in other places where we've been lobbying the relevant authorities to improve signage already. But it seems to me that we could reasonably ask the authorities, the relevant authorities, in this case, Somerset County Council, who of course are very strapped for cash. I mean, one has to sympathise with their position, but to improve the signage along there.
Agreed.
I think that it has to be a compromise. I'm not sure. I mean, it was a temporary closure for the COVID thing, and it does.
Well, it was the formal notice was for an 18-month trial, so it was temporary, but not that short. And it has been suggested that we are standing in the way of an experiment, if you like, to test whether this would be a viable proposition. The point has been made that the alternative routes are not very much longer, but it depends where you're going in Glastonbury. They are longer for some parts of it, and certainly they're not as straightforward for people. And I think most importantly, from my personal perspective, this is a road which people like. It's a road which has been used for generations, and is one which is popular with the villagers. And I'm not surprised that most people are not in favour of it being closed.
Indeed.
But if it, what if, I mean, for the people who are interested in it being closed, I think we need to think about how it would be closed, because obviously the farmers and that kind of stuff need access. The people who live there need access. So how would you physically close it? And how?
Well, that was clear when the closure was in place for that short period, that access was permitted to farm traffic and also to people who lived along there. Although, in fact, there are, as we all know, there are no houses on the road itself. Now, if the other Martin was with us, if Martin Smith was with us, he would say that that arrangement didn't appear to work very well, because he and other landowners along there were called out by cyclists who said, "What are you doing along this road? Don't you realise it's being closed?" So it is quite difficult to arrange those things, but it can be done. I mean, it could be done.
I don't know how you could erect a permanent barrier to stop, and it's probably not the traffic from the village. It's probably more to do with the delivery traffic. I mean, I drive and cycle down there, and there are quite a few of them, and I suspect that they would be, if there's not an actual physical barrier, they would be the people to move it. And you couldn't have a physical barrier because you couldn't get the farm traffic down there then. So I just think the signage and trying to highlight that it's got to be a compromise between both sides.
Yeah, I think the principle of having roads where access is controlled by signage is well established. I mean, if you go to any town, there will be signs saying that certain traffic are not allowed to use certain roads. It's just that we're a bit less familiar with that in rural areas like this. Okay, well, I don't think we need to over prolong the discussion. I would like to just hear from everybody that you did go through the comments from members of the public about this issue, and you've taken them into consideration in formulating your views.
Yeah.
Can I take it that is the case?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And can I take it that you see no grounds for us to change our position?
No.
No. Because we were. I mean, if we were consulted by Mendip, then we'd put in an official comment then. But we've not been asked for anything, have we?
Well, we were asked to give our official opposition to it in the end. Yes, and we did that after we'd done the round of emails back at the beginning of the piece. Yes, so we've done that. Yeah. And what about supporting improvement in signage to make it clearer that this is a dual-use road, and that because it forms part of the national cycle route, it is likely to be used by cyclists. How do we feel about suggesting that we would support that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody got anything to add?
No.
Hazel, from your clerk's perspective, having looked at the correspondence we've had on this, is there anything else we should be taking into account?
No, I don't believe so, Chairman. I think you've had all of the correspondence sent to everybody. You've clearly indicated that you've taken it into consideration when formulating your view and your decision. So no, I think you have covered the subject.
Okay, thank you. So I will draft something to send back to the relevant authorities saying that we've reviewed our position on it. We don't wish to change it, but we would very much like to support improvement to the signage to make it clear that this is a part of the cycle network, and any other things which help.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Everybody in favour of that?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Well, we took that item out of order. We will then go back to the agenda as tabled. So we're back to item 6, finance matters. Now, we've briefly alluded to this previously. We had rather hoped that a number of these things would be deferred until we were no longer having to operate under emergency rules. But in fact, as Hazel has advised us, a number of the dates, although they've been slipped a little, have not been put back indefinitely. And so we are required to do a number of the routine administrative matters, which normally we would have done at the previous meeting. But we need to run through these. The first of these is to certify that we are exempt from a limited assurance review, having an income and expenditure below 25,000 for the financial year 2019-20. I mean, we all know that our total income is comfortably below that level. So the answer to that is yes, we can easily certify that. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
yeah,
The bigger item is item 2, to approve the annual governance statement for the year. You've all seen a copy of that and you've had an opportunity to read it and review it. Has anybody got any questions on that?
I don't think so.
And the financial statements have already been audited. You've seen a copy of the signed audit report.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, Hazel will help us through this, but we have a mechanism. We are still required, Hazel and I, to sign some of these documents, and our signatures have to be, you have to confirm that you've seen us sign them, so that we can have a minute that these were signed in front of, in this, although it's a somewhat unusual meeting, in that unusual format of meeting. Hazel, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's perfectly correct, Chairman. So the legislation requires that both the Chairman and I sign wet signatures. So we have to physically sign the return, and that has to be agreed by you, that you agree to the annual governance statement and the points that are made therein. You've seen the annual audit internal audit report, and that you agree with the financial statements as well. If you've got any questions at all, please do ask now before we sign off the reports, provided you are happy to do so.
So if you're all happy with it, I'm going to sign page 3 of the statement. Do I have to turn the camera so you can actually see me sign it, Hazel, or can I just sign it?
I think we can trust you, Chairman.
Okay. And also on page 5, you happy for me to sign there as well?
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. And page 6 is slightly different in that Hazel had to sign that first. So she assigned a copy and sent me a copy which is signed. So I printed her signed copy and I'm going to sign it on the same document as she has already signed. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
yes,
Fine.
The document is actually the annual accounts, which I have to sign as the responsible financial officer before I actually present them to you at the meeting, which is why I sign it pre-meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so that's item 6.2 then. The 6.3, the annual accounts. Hazel has sent you a spreadsheet with the various details in there. Have you all had a look at that? Has anybody got any questions on it?
no,
Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
I seem to have lost my Zoom contact at the moment.
Well, we can hear you.
I'm still there.
Am I still there? Am I? Okay.
Yeah, you're still with us.
I'm back. I'm back.
You're back. Good.
Yep.
I was saying that the next one is item 6.3, Alistair, to approve the annual accounts for the year ending 31st of March, which came to you in a spreadsheet. Have you had a chance to look at those, and are you happy with them?
Yep, I think that was all seemed okay. Thanks very much.
Okay. And I don't actually have to sign that one, do I, Hazel, and send it back to you?
Actually, it would be helpful for my records if you could do that, just to say that you as chairman have seen, and a representative of the council, that you have seen the accounts as presented to you.
So if I just print a copy and send it back to you with the other documents,
that would be very helpful, and I'll file them all together. Thank you.
okay. And then more routinely, as usual, we have a statement of the clerk's expenses for the preceding period, a total of £118.15 for various items. Again, you've seen a breakdown of that. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And item 6.5, to approve payment of an invoice from the Somerset Association of Local Councils for some training. And we've also had an additional invoice for the annual subscription to the Somerset Association of Local Councils and the National Association of Local Councils. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How are we managing the signing of cheques during this period, Hazel?
Well, what I propose to do is for the invoices, I will sign this. I am a signatory on the account, so I will sign the cheque and then send them to you, Chairman, now that everybody is happy and has seen the invoices. And then I'll ask you to send them on if you would be so kind. And then in September, I will ask you to sign a salary cheque for me. I think it has been a year since I've been paid, so
okay.
I suppose I'd better actually claim that.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
But I won't sign my own salary cheque. What I will do is I will send.
Well, if you send it to me, who else is authorised to sign at the moment?
You've got Councillor Bovey, Councillor Hodinott, Councillor Bissett hasn't, and neither has Councillor Smith. So you have two other signatories there.
Okay, fine. And finally, item 6.6, to resolve to appoint Tony Bradfield as the council's internal auditor. I think I'm right in saying he does this in an honorary capacity, doesn't charge us a fee. Are we happy to reappoint Tony?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that is resolved. Anything else on finance matters while we're on the topic, Hazel?
No, Chairman, that covers all of the finance issues for this month.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 7 then, planning matters. We've got a number of things here. The first one, application 2020 stroke 1197 stroke CLE, concerns the continuing right to use a mobile home and an outbuilding on Dark Lane. You've seen the documents on that. I did try to find out why this had come up at this stage. Did Mendip take action against the occupant or something? What happened? Do you know, Martin? Because he obviously approached you about it.
Well, no, I don't know anything about it really. He didn't approach me. Bill Bartlett asked me if I'd sign it.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't heard anything from Charlie at all. Other than he originally came and asked me if I would do it, but I haven't heard of a reason why.
Yeah, it seems a most peculiar application because it's unclear from the documents exactly. It being called a certificate of use existing. I guess it's to formalise the fact that he's lived there for a very long time. Yeah,
I guess that's all it is, I suppose.
Yeah.
I've certainly heard nothing extra to that.
Yeah, and I'm as you have already said, and as a number of others have said, it's highly unlikely that anybody from the village would have a problem with this. But I did notice that once again the consultation process seems a bit strange because apart from ourselves, Mendip didn't consult anybody.
No, they didn't even consult the neighbouring house, did they?
No, no.
Not that the neighbouring house, other than where his father lives next door. The next one was where Len Francis lived. So the new people have not known any different anyway. Since they've been there, he's always been there living. So I don't suppose it makes much difference.
And Bill clearly was happy about it because he'd approached others to support it.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
That was probably last autumn, I expect. I signed that affidavit thing.
Yeah, it's not quite that long ago. They are dated, but it's a while ago, yeah. Okay, well, not to prejudge our decision making on this, but do I infer that we're all happy with this and we can ask Hazel to indicate our support?
Yes, I'm happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay with it, Kathy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been here since 2000. I thought that caravan thing was a fixture. Didn't realise there was any question about it.
Yeah. Well, it is a fixture. It has
changed since 2000. It's a different caravan now.
Yeah, I did notice that. I said it's a different caravan, but I just thought, there's always been something there since we've been here. So
that was put in there in May 2006. The current one.
Okay. So Hazel will communicate with Mendip about that. At this point, I need to withdraw to the waiting room, and Alistair will take over to take the next item.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Catch up with you in a minute. Officially, we'll have to wait for you to disappear, I presume.
I assume so, yeah.
Okay. All right. So yes, the next one then is the Leicester building consent for Simon and Felicity. It's a fairly lengthy document, quite well put together, I felt, explaining everything that he knows about the house and the conditions that apply, and a list of the number of things that he wants to have done. Primarily wood burning stove in one of the living rooms, and means altering the chimney, altering certain windows, repairing other mullions and metal work around the windows, doing some structural repairs on one of the flank walls with some repointing, re-roofing the stone turret to go on against Stocks Lane, and other refurbishment around the first floor windows. Anyone have any thoughts? I don't know whether any of you have seen the house, or I mean, I haven't seen all the areas, but I've know parts of it. I remember Simon talking about the lack of a gutter over the back door for quite many years ago. But have you seen any of it or got any comments?
Obviously, you can see the north side, but really the only outside physical change is going to be chimney pots rather than the flat chimneys. But if you can't maintain the flat chimneys to put the flue liners in, and if you don't put the flue liners in, the house might set on fire. You can't really,
No.
You have to be sensible. I mean, I don't see the difference, but anybody looking at it would have to be sensible and say, and the same with changes to the east wall. I mean, if it's going to fall down, it's not like you're not preserving a building if you're letting it fall down or set on fire, are you? So obviously the changes he's proposing seem to be perfectly in line with preserving a listed building, really.
Yep. And obviously the repairs to the windows and mullions and all that sort of stuff is fairly just ongoing stuff that he needs to get covered. And I think he's going to re-roof the single-story projection out up against Stocks Lane, because that incorporates the staircase. I think he says that needs to be re-roofed in due course. But whether he does all of this in one go is up to him, really. Any thoughts, Martin, at all?
No, I know the house reasonably well, but yeah, it's just stuff that needs doing, and you've got to get on and do it, as far as I can see. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, are we happy to put our consent towards it all?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll say three of us, three agreed, which was the requisite number. Okay, so Hazel, I think you can get Simon back.
Yes, I'll bring him back then.
Gone away to hide. Have we still got an audience on YouTube? Can you tell?
I can tell, yes, we have 5 people currently viewing.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Simon, thank you very much. You're pleased to know we're very happy with your proposals and good luck with it all.
Thank you. Whilst I was back in the waiting, it reset all the settings on my screen. It's just taken me a minute or two to get them back. But can you all hear me again?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So 7.3 then, this is an issue which we've again discussed using the earlier version of the emergency powers on a couple of occasions. I think we're all familiar with the property in question and the issue in question. Planning permission already exists for a somewhat rambling single-story building, and the current owners would like to submit an application to fairly radically redesign the place into a house, which will be a little less than a metre higher than the building for which they already have planning permission. And they approached us a while ago to see what our reaction to that would be. We have already recommended to them that they probably ought to have pre-discussions with Mendip, which I gather they haven't yet done. But they did provide us with some additional drawings, which we've all had a chance to have a look at to see what we think of what they've got in mind, and they would like our opinion. We have stressed to them that until they submit a formal application, anything that we say is an informal view. But as they've asked us to have a look at it and give them a view, we feel it's appropriate to do that. So has anybody got any thoughts on it?
No, it's still that the whole scheme involves a considerable amount of earthworks there. They're talking about reducing the ground level by quite some considerable amount in order to level the site off. And I can see that causing a fair amount of disruption. But that's more to do with the whole concept of building there in the first place, which they've already got permission for. So as you say, this alteration only really raises the ridge by 700 millimeters or something. So it's not a fundamental change. And I would just emphasize that I think they obviously ought to, when they submit it to Mendip, they'll automatically discuss it with the neighbours and see what comes out of all of that discussion, and we can look at it again with a wider view. But I don't see any significant objection at this stage.
I mean, it's hard to visualize, I mean, without actually being there on site, what actually where they are, what actual difference going up. I mean, it's 2.5 feet, isn't it? They get going to go up. What difference that makes, what their close neighbours would feel about it. So, you know, whether it will, you know, distract from the visual amenity of some building or other, without actually being, you know, just that small drawing is hard to say. So I find it hard to formulate an opinion on whether I think it, you know, it's said they already have planning permission, whether the new building will be, you know, the close neighbours will dislike that more than the old building is really difficult to say without actual planning and plans and seeing the site really.
The other material change, of course, is that since the original planning permission was granted, another building has been constructed on an adjoining plot, about which, you know, shall we say, people have got mixed views. that clearly changes the perspective. I think the reason that they were unable to get planning permission for a normal house rather than a bungalow first time round is it would have been dominant on the skyline. But because of this other development that's already taken place, that's no longer the case.
Well, I don't know about that, because having been there on that plot a few times and looking across for his car park, it will be dominant on the skyline if it's 700 mil higher. That's for certain, because it will be higher than the other plot.
Yeah.
But whether that actually makes any difference to the neighbours, we'll have to wait and see. But I would suggest it probably doesn't, to be honest. But I know we've been there with Roger Eddy and looked at this several times over the years, and it's a little contentious, that plot is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that depends on the neighbours at the time, what their view is on it. But it will stand out. But there's other houses that stand out as well, whether it's a problem if it's properly built and it's good on the eye, I don't know.
Yeah, they're proposing a more conventional construction though than the other one, aren't they?
Yeah. Personally, I would say that the one built behind it isn't to my liking, but like it, and some people don't. But it's not the sort of thing I would want to build.
Yeah,
that's just my view.
We're not being asked to actually sort of support this application to, to go in 700 mil higher than the previous one, are we? We're just being asked to make our comments at this stage.
To be honest, Alistair, I'm not completely sure what we're being asked. That's the issue. I mean, because I think what they were trying to sound out is whether the parish council would be likely to support it or not likely to support it. And I'm a bit in Martin's camp. I think a lot will depend on the feedback that we get from the neighbours and so on.
Yes, I agree with that.
We simply don't have that information available to us at the moment.
Yes, yes. Okay.
That's what I said as well. I'm just, you wonder what it's up to the neighbours, really.
So I think we need to word our feedback to them, not on the grounds that they can't go to Mendip and say we've discussed it with the parish council and they're all in favour of it. We're saying we can't decide one or the other until we've heard what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be my view on it.
That's pretty much what we've said already.
It is, yes, yeah.
That doesn't make it the wrong thing to say. I agree. I think it's that's until we've seen one drawing which gives an indication, but clearly I interpreted it slightly differently to Martin. I didn't think it was going to be higher than the other building, but if it is, I mean, I think that is a material consideration.
Well, I'm pretty certain that's why when we looked at it last time, we stated that was the height and no higher.
Yeah.
So I would think that any higher would be higher than that other house.
But the other house wasn't there then, was it? I mean,
no, but the applications were in about the same time.
Were they?
We looked at that other house, and then we got through the hedge and looked at this one, the same visit on the same day.
Really?
Yeah. So it's until you get up there in that field and look at it and go to the Crossways car park and look back across, it's a job to visualize it sat in your house, because it's one of those deceiving plots up there.
Yeah.
It can be seen from anywhere, really, that plot. Anywhere across that area will see it. Well,
that other house, you can see it from miles away.
Yeah.
It's extremely prominent. Yeah.
It is just with the drawing really hard to visualize, and I'm unlike Martin, I've never been to the plot, so I can't even properly visualize. I know where it sits, but visualize what's around it and where it looks over and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty easy to see where it's going to go, because the foundations for the previous house are there. I mean, they did put the foundations in to secure the planning permission, because it's well more than 3 years ago since they got planning permission for it.
Yeah.
So they did get Mendip to acknowledge that they'd made an effective start on the work, which means the planning permission, remains in place. And what the applicant assured us is that the proposed alternative building would sit within the footprint of or the vast majority of it anyway, sits within the footprint of the existing foundations.
My gut feeling on it is the proposed new one would actually look better than the existing proposal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel it is largely going to be up to the neighbours whether they think that's the case or not. Because obviously I haven't got to look at it every day, but they have.
Well, not many of them have got to look at it because most of the houses are designed to look in other directions, aren't they?
Well, yes, but from their gardens and
Yes.
their properties, they will look at it.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? What do we actually say to her?
I would be inclined to say that whilst we're not supporting it, we can't see any objection at this stage, but will depends on what the neighbours think when it comes in for the full planning permission.
Yeah, that's fine. What I'd like to add to that is that we continue to recommend that they have pre-application consultants with Mendip.
Indeed.
And if possible, talk to their neighbours and see,
Yeah.
what they're happy with, really.
That's always a good starting point, and that's a mistake that Paddy Gordon made when he was doing his affordable homes. If he'd had some conversations with the neighbours to start off with, he might not have had so much opposition against it. So I think it's always good to speak to the neighbours. It's always a good thing to do, whether it's a contentious plot or not.
Yeah. Okay.
But I wouldn't say I'm adverse to the idea of it, but until you get the proper plans and proper consultations, it's a job to see which way it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm just a little worried we've lost Hazel. Are you still there, Hazel? Oh, yes.
I'm still here. I'm on mute, Chairman, so that I don't interrupt your debate. But I am still.
Okay. Are you clear on the message then?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Item 7.4 then, to consider any other planning matters that have arisen. Just in the last day or two, Hazel has sent us some new information on planning from Mendip. I don't know how many of you had a chance to have a look at that, but there's some quite detailed documents there, and I wonder if one of you would like to volunteer to go through them quite carefully and make sure there are no snares in there.
What was that? All the planning procedures? You mean not specific?
The strategic. There's a strategic flood risk assessment, which I think probably is barely worth the paper it's printed on. There's something on highways, investment strategy, and there's a general planning policy update document as well.
Right.
Out.
Yeah. Well, I'll have a look through those if you like, and try and come back to you on that.
I think that would be very helpful. I mean, we've only had them for a day or so. I've had a quick breeze through them, and I couldn't see anything obvious. But I think the devil's in the detail with these things, and I do think one of us needs to have had a good look at them to make sure there's nothing problematic there.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah. And the other one, really, it's a pity the other Martin isn't with us, but maybe you know, Martin. What's happening with the caravans out towards Long Grove?
Have they gone?
Yeah.
Because there's another building structure being put up there now, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I don't know what's happened to them. I've been down there before I came here and put some fence up in the field next door. But that's the first time I was aware the caravans weren't there and this new structure was being put up. but I know no more than what I've seen this afternoon.
Right.
Nothing, I haven't seen anything on Mendip, so is this buildings going up?
Presumably you haven't heard anything about this, Hazel?
No, I've had no notification at all of anything about this.
But what's being put up is not very big, is it? It probably doesn't even need planning anyway, I wouldn't have thought. It might need a prior notification, but it wouldn't need planning, I wouldn't think. But to be honest, from my quick view of driving by it, I thought it looked tidier than it normally does there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it might just be that they were given permission to keep the caravans there temporarily, although I think formally the permission was not about the length of time the caravans were there, it was the length of time they were occupied, while arrangements were made to well, I think we know the background to this particular case.
But because I don't think they've ever lived there, as far as I'm aware.
They as far to the best of my knowledge, they've never been occupied.
Whether they moved them to put that other building structure up in their place, and that's why they moved them, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, do we just let sleeping dogs lie and see what happens, or do we ask Mendip what's going on?
Well, I would suggest as the look of the place is improved, I would leave it well alone.
Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah, I think.
Well, unless anybody else, somebody from outside comments. Yeah.
Well, I have had a couple of questions from people about it, but I get questions about all sorts of things. What's happening about this and what's happening about that. I wouldn't say there's an exceptional level of interest in it.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay. Well, we'll just maybe Martin, if you notice anything when you're passing, you keep us informed.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. I'm not aware of any other planning matters that we need to talk about.
There is just one thing I wanted to raise about the affordable homes, which I think I don't think they've been occupied yet, but they're due to be occupied soon.
I think one of them is. Somebody say something moved in.
Oh, right. Okay. I know. I mean, one of the under the original scheme, there were there've been a number of changes to the scheme since it was approved under the planning permission in November 2018. And one of the conditions then was that no occupation shall take place until the access, turning areas, footpaths have been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. Well, the approved plans we've got aren't quite the same as what's been built. And I just wonder whether we could ask Mendip if they've approved all the changes and whether we can have a meeting with them to discuss what changes have taken place and make sure we're happy with them. I mean, there are a number of things that don't look as though they're quite right as per the drawings. And I don't think, we necessarily want to be taking the builder to one side and saying, have you built this in accordance with the drawings? But I think Mendip are supposed to have agreed everything. And I think it would be helpful if they could confirm that or meet us on site to discuss the changes. And we've got, 2 new footpaths coming out onto Stocks Lane, not in terribly good places. And I'm not sure whether the hedge has been reconstructed down against the crossways. And that was important for the visibility display and things like that. And at the extent of the houses going up the hill, they seem to come further up away from the crossways than was originally indicated. But that may just be a scale on the drawings. I don't know.
What's that? That sounds reasonable. If you think it's not quite to plan, we should be able to have a look at it, I would have thought.
Certainly a number of given the emotion around this development, it's unfortunate to say the least that it's something as obvious as putting the footpaths where, as far as we know, that they're not meant to be, is not ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because there was some discrepancies on the original drawings about the levels that the units were going to go in at. and that was never really fully resolved at the planning permission stage. So they refer to
I mean,
both.
I think realistically, Alistair, it's asking a lot to do anything about that now.
Oh yes, I'm not saying we necessarily alter it, but at least we could find out whether we're satisfied that they have been built as they're supposed to have been.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the problem with the planning office, as I've found dealing with them recently, they are working under emergency regulations at the moment. It's quite difficult to get them to do anything.
Yes.
I'm not sure we'll get a lot of joy out of them. That doesn't mean that it isn't worthwhile as just notifying them that these queries have arisen, and would they like to tell us what their view is?
Okay. Yes. So is that something that Hazel could like to mend it for us and just see if we can have a meeting with them?
Yes, they may not agree to a meeting with you because of the procedures that the chairman's just alluded to. In fact, that they're probably working from home and may not be making site visits. But I can certainly ask them to confirm that the properties have been built as per the drawings submitted and the planning permission that's been given.
Yeah, they are making site visits because I've had a site.
Okay.
Okay, well, there are one or two things that I've specifically noted that I think would be worth mentioning and seeing if they can confirm.
Well, why don't you liaise with? I think it's better that the contact comes via Hazel.
Yes.
But why don't you liaise with Hazel on the text? Keep it as short and straightforward as possible,
Okay.
and let's see where it gets us.
Okay. Yes, indeed. We'll do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on planning?
No.
Right. Well, we've dealt with item 8. So item 9. Alistair, over to you. Highways matters.
Okay. A couple of things that you'll have probably noticed that the 3 finger post signs are back up in the village now. 2 of them are still waiting for some new fingers to be added. They've just come back from the foundry, and I think they're going to be fixed on Thursday of this week. That's the one outside the Crossways and the one outside Cressel Lane. And the one at the top of the High Street, I think, is already complete. Unfortunately, Somerset Forge weren't able to do the one out at Harty Gate at this time. They're inundated with other applications in, so they're just concentrating on the 3 in the village for us at the moment. And the Harty Gate one will have to wait until we can get round to having some more done. I did ask them what their current workload was, but they said they're very snowed under at the moment, and because they can't do some of it in the wet weather of the winter, so any others that we want done would have to wait until the spring of next year. So at least we've got 3 done now, which they'll invoice for us in due course, and then the other ones can follow on in the early part of next year. On the highways matters,
Can I just ask you one question on the finger posts,
Yep.
Alistair? The one outside the Crossways, are they all pointing in the preferred direction?
well, there's one missing, that one that points up towards Worminster and Dinder. So they may not all be finalised. I haven't really looked to see exactly. You think they're probably not quite angled correctly, are they?
Well, there seem to be 2 in the same direction.
Well, maybe they're not secured then in that case, then, because they've got to fix that. They've got another one which are probably going to go at the bottom of the pile. So I
Right.
suspect they're probably going to
Well,
take
that might be it then.
put them
I
on again.
bet the kids are twizzled them round.
Well, that's what I was suspecting, that there'd been, because apparently there's a history of that. It's a sort of well-established tradition that the kids who live up there finger the finger posts.
Might
Yeah.
not be just the ones that live up there.
This is your part-time activity, is it, Martin?
Not
You're
recently.
revealing your teenage crimes now, Martin.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
The other thing on the highways matters are the 2 Martins mentioned about the flooding on Lower West Home Road outside Lower West Home Farm. I've reported that to Somerset County Highways, and in fact they were out there the same day that I sent in an email marking the gully that needs to be cleared there. I haven't seen whether they've done it yet, So hopefully they'll be onto that one fairly soon. And there were some more potential potholes at the Glastonbury end of Long Drove. And I pointed out that if this is going to get used as more of a cycle route in the future, they ought to probably see to that as soon as possible. So both of those have been acknowledged and given case numbers. So I suspect we'll see some action on those two in the near future. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Okay.
There is a growing pothole just outside of Coombe Gateway as well.
Coombe Gateway.
Yeah.
Whereabouts is that, Martin? Sorry.
Well, where you're going to Dave Bartlett's house,
Yeah.
just before you get to there, if you were coming from the Forge, there's an enlarged pothole growing there.
Oh, on Dark Lane.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll have a look at that one. Thank you.
Well, Dark Lane generally is in pretty poor nick. But the bit from Dave Bartlett's house back towards the village, the top coating's gone off quite a long section. It's only a matter of time before that ends up as a big pothole.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on highway matters? Fine. Footpaths then, Martin.
Nothing. I've heard nothing officially wrong.
That sounds like a carefully chosen step.
That means I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know what goes on Facebook. I only know what I get told. But I hear there's been a complaint.
Yeah. Well, I think we all know.
Nobody seems to have commented on it, apparently, bar the person that put the complaint up.
Well, I think our jurisdiction doesn't extend to issues with dogs. I assume that's what you're alluding to, rather than the footpath.
No, I'm not alluding to dogs. I was alluding to the fact that I put an electric fence across a footpath and it was disliked.
Oh, really?
That electric fence is now gone anyway. So.
Oh, you naughty boy.
I know.
We were thinking you'd done a great job this year in keeping the footpaths going through the maze.
Well, I did go and crawl up through that on my hands and knees and pull out 6 plants in each row. Luckily, nobody saw me doing it. But yes, I haven't heard anything other than that Facebook post.
Do you know who's done the work on Mead Lane?
No, what has happened on Mead Lane?
Well, I think I know who removed the tree that was down, but somebody's run a cutter bar of some sort along there. It's all nicely cut back at the moment.
Didn't know that had happened. No idea. But I did drive down there in the telehandler last autumn, and it was touch and go whether I could get down through there at all.
Well, you wouldn't have a problem at the moment.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. But no, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The only issue there is that it does flood at the Red Lake end, towards the Red Lake end.
Yeah.
And there was a sort of informal detour into the undergrowth at the side, but they've put a new gate and a jump there for people using the bridle path, and that involved removing quite a bit of vegetation, and that's been dumped across that informal path, so it's inaccessible at the moment.
Oh, didn't know that.
Okay, anything else on footpath matters then?
No.
Fine. Well, the other Martin isn't with us, unfortunately. So I don't know if he's got anything to report. He hasn't given you any information, has he, Hazel?
No, he hasn't sent anything through to me.
Okay. Right. So our next meeting, under normal schedule would be due to meet on Tuesday, the 15th of September. And I think in principle, unless anybody's got a reason to suggest we shouldn't do that, we should do that. And I think for the moment, we have to work on the assumption that we'll need to continue to meet virtually, though, of course, the sooner we're able to stop doing this and meet back in the village hall, the better.
I'll have to notify you. I'm probably going to be away then, or at least hope to be away then. So if you can bear that in mind.
Presumably that would apply to any date in September,
Okay,
though,
no.
would it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that date all right with you, Hazel?
Yes, that should be fine, Chairman. I haven't had any other notification in terms of official guidance. Well, no, that's not true. The official guidance that we've had still says that we should be holding remote meetings unless it's absolutely essential that the parish council meets. Physically, I'm talking about.
What sort of circumstances that are you envisaging it would be absolutely essential?
I can't imagine anything in North Wootton that would mean that we would have to actually meet face to face, to be honest. It would have to be something so urgent, so critical that would mean that we couldn't, for example, meet over Zoom. And I can't envisage, unless all of your broadband went down, for example, and you absolutely had to, I don't know, submit something to do with planning where your view was essential to Mendip's determination of that application. Something of that order would have to be, that's what I mean by critical.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's plan on the 15th of September. I have been approached by a couple of people in the village about potential planning applications of one sort or another, just to discuss things in principle. But until we actually get something formally, we can't do anything about any of them, of course. Okay, well, unless anybody else has got anything that they wish to bring to my or Hazel's attention, I suggest that's it. Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much. And for anybody who's persevered on the live stream version, thank you for joining us as well. The minutes will be available on our website in due course if you want to have a look at them. And as ever, if you've got any questions or queries, we're always available. You know what our contact details are. They're in the North Wootton News otherwise. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel, for setting it up.
Thanks very much, Hazel. Thanks for keeping us on the straight and narrow.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.